The sun beat down on the dusty main street of Dustcreek, Nevada. It was 1879, and the town buzzed with heat, desperation, and the rough sort of commerce that made decent men avert their eyes. At the far end of the street, a wooden platform had been set up near the saloon, and a crowd of ranchers, miners, and drifters gathered around with greedy eyes and crude remarks. Among them stood Luke Mallory, a tall, sun-browned cowboy with callous hands and a broken past. He was a quiet man, known for minding his own business, except when something stirred that old hurt in his heart. He hadn't come to town for trouble. He'd come for fence wire and a sack of flour. But the moment he saw her, shivering under a torn shawl, eyes downcast, wrists bound, he forgot everything else. "She's a hard worker," the auctioneer called out, clapping his hands. "Chinese girl, speaks little English. Good for cooking, cleaning, or whatever else you want." Luke's jaw tightened. He could see the bruises on her neck. The crowd jeered. Someone made a crude joke, and the girl flinched. $10, a drunk miner shouted. Luke's hand went up. "I'll pay it." The crowd turned. The miner cursed, sold to the cowboy in the hat. 10 minutes later, Luke stood in the alley behind the platform, her release papers in hand. She looked at him with confusion in her almond-shaped eyes, expecting the worst. But he didn't touch her. He handed her the papers and said softly, "You're free now." She blinked. "You, by me. Now you set me free." Luke nodded. "Ain't right, what they did to you. You got every right to go where you please." She hesitated. Then in a trembling voice, she said, "No place to go, no money, no people. Can I stay as your wife?" Chapter 2, Shadows on the Prairie. Luke didn't answer right away. The word wife hit like a thunderclap. He hadn't been called a husband since Clara died 5 years back in a buggy accident that tore him apart. He'd buried his heart along with her. "I ain't looking for a wife," he said, not unkindly. The girl nodded, folding her hands over her chest. "I just want to play safe. I can clean, cook, help." "What's your name?" "My Lynn," she whispered. He scratched his beard. "All right, My Lynn. You can stay at my place. Not as a wife. Just stay safe for now." They rode out to his small ranch 2 miles north of town. The land was dry and stubborn, but Luke had coaxed life out of it with hard work. He had 3 horses, a 1-room cabin, and enough silence to keep most people away. My Lynn worked with quiet diligence. She scrubbed the floors until they gleamed, fixed the loose boards on the porch, and cooked better than Luke had eaten in years. She smiled rarely, but when she did, it lit the cabin like sunrise. Still, they barely spoke. Luke kept his distance, until the night of the storm. Chapter 3, The Fire Within. Thunder rolled over the prairie as rain poured in sheets. Luke had gone out to tie down the horses when a lightning strike split the tree near the barn. He was thrown back, hitting his head on a post. When he woke, My Lynn was crouched beside him, tears running down her face. "You almost die," she sobbed, pressing the cloth to his bleeding head. "Why you do so dangerous?" Luke winced. Didn't plan on getting struck. She laughed softly through her tears. "You stupid cowboy." He looked at her, really looked at her. Her hair had come loose from its braid, her eyes wide and afraid, not for herself, but for him. Something in Luke's chest cracked open. After that, things shifted. They began to talk more. She told him of the village in China where she was born, the ship that carried her to San Francisco, and the man who'd sold her into bondage when her brother failed to pay a debt. Luke told her about Clara, about how he used to believe in God until the day he took her. And My Lynn listened, not with pity, but with understanding. One morning, while gathering eggs, she said quietly, "Clara gone. I not try take her place, but I think your heart's still alive." Luke looked at her, and for the first time, didn't see a stranger. He saw a woman who had survived pain just as deep as his own. A woman who had every right to hate men, and yet she stayed. Chapter 4, Trouble Rides In. Word spread in Dustcreek. The girl Luke bought didn't run. She lived with him. Folks started talking. One day, Sheriff Dorsey rode up to Luke's place. You got her legally, but people say she didn't choose to stay. That true? Luke stepped forward. You want to ask her? My Lynn came out of the cabin, her chin high. I stay because I want. He is good man, not like others. Dorsey grunted. All right, but you be careful. There's folks in town who don't like seeing their kind get too comfortable. Those words proved true one night a week later. Luke was in the barn fixing a saddle when he heard the cabin door crash open. 3 men had ridden out drunk and bold. One of them was the miner who'd tried to buy my Lynn at the auction. He grabbed her by the arm, slurring, You owe me a night, little girl. She screamed. Luke charged him with a shotgun. Let go of her. The men laughed, until Luke cocked the gun. The miner sneered. You gonna shoot us over a hole. Luke fired at the ground near their feet. Next one goes in your gut. They ran. My Lynn collapsed into Luke's arms, sobbing. He held her tight, trembling with rage and shame. I should have protected you better, he said. She clung to him. You saved me again. He pulled back to look at her face. I can't keep pretending this don't matter. Tears in her eyes, she whispered, I not pretend either. Chapter 5. As Your Wife. The next morning, Luke shaved, cleaned up, and rode to the church. He found the preacher digging fence posts and asked him for a favor. That evening, under a pale sunset, Luke knelt before my Lynn with a ring fashioned from his late wife's silver brooch. I told you I wasn't looking for a wife, but I think maybe I just didn't know I could love again. She pressed her hand to her mouth, trembling. I want to marry you, not to own you, but to walk beside you, as equals. If you still want to stay, stay as my wife. My Lynn nodded, her eyes filled with wonder. Yes, I stay. I be your wife. Chapter 6. A New Life. They were married the next morning, with only the preacher, his wife, and 2 witnesses, his old ranch hand and the preacher's daughter. Dustcreek buzzed with gossip, but it didn't matter. Luke and my Lynn built their life with strong hands and quiet hearts. She planted a garden behind the cabin. He added a room to the house. In the evenings, they read from Luke's old Bible, not because they were religious, but because the stories soothed them. Some nights, Luke would lie awake and watch his sleep, marveling at how love had returned to him in the most unlikely way. Epilogue. Dust and bloom. 5 years later, Dustcreek had changed. A school stood where the saloon once did. My Lynn taught children of every background how to read and write, English and Mandarin. Folks came to respect her, though a few still held on to their bitterness. Luke, he aged like sun-worn leather, still fixing fences, still tending horses, but never alone. Their daughter, Lily, had his eyes and her mother's quiet strength. And when people asked him how he found a wife like my Lynn, he'd say, I didn't find her. I just saw her when others refused to, and I let her stay. Sometimes love comes like thunder, but sometimes it walks in soft, barefooted, and asks, Can I stay? And if you're wise, you say yes.